going on, guys? Good morning. Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a good Tuesday morning, the morning after the night before. Yes, last night Manchester United kicked off their Premier League campaign at Old Trafford with a 1-0 win over Wolves, and it was a tough watch. You can't describe it as anything else than that, can you? It was a very difficult watch. It was a very challenging evening for United, but we just about got there. Now, for those that are saying, hey Owen, where's Matchday Reloaded? That will be coming back soon. But whilst the transfer window is open, there is still plenty of transfer news to get into, particularly this morning when it comes to Harry Maguire, and maybe this move to West Ham stalling a little bit, and not so much on the West Ham side of things, but maybe on the Manchester United side of things, maybe on the player side of things. So some details on that this morning. Also an approach, not for Andre Onana, but Onana that plays for Everton. Some midfield reinforcements as maybe, speaking of stalling, the move for Sofian Amrabat. Maybe that one stalled as well because that's gone a little bit quiet, and maybe Erik ten Hag is already looking at other targets. We're going to reflect a little bit on the game as well last night. So Gary O'Neill has said that the PGMLO has already admitted to him that it was a mistake last night not to award them a penalty. We'll be discussing that, getting some of your opinions as well. Matty Kovar has completed his move to Bayer Leverkusen. We'll reflect on that just a little bit. And as I mentioned, we'll chat a little bit about the game, how everyone's feeling the morning after, concerns for the season ahead, optimism, considering we weren't at our best, but we still got 3 points, how everybody's feeling and all that kind of stuff. So there's plenty to get into this morning. So if you haven't already, click the like button on the way in. You know what to do. Let's see what some of you guys are saying in the chat already. Wayne says, good morning all. Ahmad says, nothing wrong with criticism, just some of you are toxic. I think referring to, I see some people talking already about Mason Mount. It was just, I felt bad actually for both Casemiro and Mason Mount last night, actually, upon reflection. I know people will say, see, I told you, Mason Mount, he's not that guy. He's rah, rah, rah. That midfield was just completely outnumbered. I mean, they were completely overrun, completely outnumbered. Gary O'Neill even said it. I was watching as I was prepping to go live here. Gary O'Neill said it to the guys in the Monday Night Football studio last night. He said, well, the game plan has made a bit of a box around the midfield. They just completely overdid it. I mean, they had it was like 4-on-2, 5-on-2 at points. So I don't know if it's more so of Mason Mount and Casemiro not playing well. They didn't have their best game, but they were just completely outnumbered. And maybe that comes back to, you know, the structure that Erik ten Hag tried to implement on that game as well. So again, we'll get into all of that, so be sure to smash the like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. As you can see, top right-hand corner, we're just under 150 subscribers away from 150k. 150 to 150. Ah, look at that. Perfect. So if you haven't already, subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. And remember, you can check out all of the content that went up last night. Fan views from outside Old Trafford, inside the studio, full-time view, all that fun stuff. Be sure to check it out. Now, Harry Maguire. Let's start off talking about Harry Maguire and his move to West Ham possibly stalling a little bit. It's been reported by The Telegraph that West Ham have started to look at alternative targets as doubts grow as to whether they will sign Manchester United's Harry Maguire. The £30 million deal to acquire Harry Maguire from Man United is now understood to be in the balance, with West Ham impatient at the length of time being taken to conclude this deal. Now, when it comes to what the issue is, some people are saying, oh, what's going on? Well, according to The Telegraph, the issue is understood to be one between Manchester United and Harry Maguire and not involving West Ham. It comes as a blow as they had been increasingly confident over the weekend of finalising the move. Now, it must be said, this morning, for maybe less reputable sources, but this morning the suggestion is that Harry Maguire's move to West Ham is stalling because he's demanding this big payoff from United to join West Ham, possibly a payoff in the region of £15 million. Of course, we do know that he's got, 2 years left on his contract. His contract is certainly extensive. It's big. It's nearly 200k a week, around £190,000 a week. West Ham are going to reportedly be offering him about half of that. They're going to be offering him 100k a week, and Maguire, according to these reports, is looking for some kind of payoff, and obviously that's going to that's going to take some time for United to negotiate with the former captain, hence why this one could be taking a bit longer, and also hence why West Ham are kind of looking at it as, well, You know, we've got stuff we want to do. We've got other players we want to pursue. We've got other targets we could get if indeed this one isn't done quick enough. As far as replacements, of course, that's looking likely if Maguire does go to be Benjamin Pavard. He's reportedly desperate to move to Manchester United, but reportedly he could cost around £35 million, and Erik ten Hag will only make the move if Harry Maguire is sold. Of course, if Maguire stays, he's not going to go for Benjamin Pavard. Pavard, though, he's already twerking for the move on social media. Last night, Benjamin Pavard was commenting on, was it Rafael Varane's post or was it Man United's post? I feel like it was Rafael Varane's post on Instagram. It was Rafael Varane's post, yes. With Varane had posted a picture of him celebrating the goal that he scored last night, the winner, and Pavard put some flame emojis underneath it. You know me, love an emoji. Love communicating through emojis. And Romano said that Pavard is pushing with Bayern to make this deal happen. So, where do you start with this one? Okay, let's start off when it comes to the stalling of Harry Maguire potentially. I did a video a few days ago saying I wasn't too worried because I felt like ultimately he'd move on. And I suppose that doesn't really change too much. That hasn't really changed too much. I can understand West Ham's frustration about this because from their point of view, David Moyes said it in his press conference the other day, didn't he? He said, well, we've had a fee agreed with Manchester United. I can't say too much more about it, but yeah, we've had a fee agreed. From what I had seen and from what I had read, it was always, I think a lot of people were always under the impression that if this one was to get done, it wasn't going to get done before Wolves yesterday. Why? Because Ten Hag had even said it in his press conference. Is Harry Maguire going to be available? Of course. He said the quote was, of course he's going to be available. I think the idea always was get the Wolves game out of the way first and then they'll conclude that deal. But also, they're only going to conclude that deal once they think that Pavard or whoever the centre-back replacement is, whether it ends up being Todibo or whoever, is completely lined up and it's a fairly seamless transaction. It's a fairly seamless process, and it would appear that all of the I's haven't been dotted and all of the T's haven't been crossed at this point in time. Yeah, they haven't sorted out what this payoff is going to be. And look, there's going to be a payoff. There's no doubt about it. There's going to be a payoff for Harry Maguire because again, he's from his point of view, he's taking a pay cut. And he's got 2 years left on a massive contract that he knows he's never going to get again. So he's looking for that payout. We're pursuing a player from Bayern Munich where Bayern still don't want to sell him. And that's a key factor. And as much as Pavard wants this move, Bayern still don't want to let him go. There's still a bit of a back and forth of, Pavard saying to Bayern Munich, I'm not going to sign a new contract. I've got a year left. Sell me. But Bayern are like, well, but you're still an important player for us. We want to keep you. So we're involved in these sort of various webs. So I can understand West Ham's frustration. And if they feel like, oh, maybe this one doesn't get done as quickly as we want it to get done, then they might walk away. And to be honest, who else is in for Harry Maguire this summer? Nobody. If this one collapses and falls through, we're not signing another centre-back because Harry Maguire will stay. And obviously, that's not good. That's not good because I feel like there are better options. Or we can get, even if it is, a Pavard, that option's better than what Maguire can offer in terms of versatility, in terms of experience, in terms of stuff won and achieved throughout the career. Pavard, obviously, hot take Owen, is a better option than Harry Maguire. But do I come here this morning, am I really concerned that this is all going to fall through? Still no. I think time will tell in the next couple of days. The next few days, I think, in this one are really key. If we get to, today's Tuesday, if we get to sort of Thursday, Friday, and there's been nothing on this, then I think that's when it's time to get quite worried about it. That there's been no real movement on it. It was always the case of it's probably going to, all of this stuff is probably going to happen in the next few days or so, I think. So, again, it's worrying, and whenever you see stalling, because some people have latched so much onto, the prayers have been answered, Maguire's going to finally go, and then we see things, it's stalling. I still do think ultimately it is going to happen. I still do think that one is ultimately going to happen. Let's get to some super chats very quickly, and then I'll get some of your opinions up on it. SK says, it was 5v3 in midfield. Wolves pressed only when we went wide and collapsed on Casemiro. Think we need Rashid to drop into equal numbers. We need that ball-carrying CM to carry in games like this. Obviously, we're going to be talking about midfielders, but I appreciate the contribution from SK. Again, I did... as much as no one really had a good game last night, really, when you look at United, I mean, again, we'll go more in depth on it a bit later on. But, God, if anyone comes out of that, any United fan, and goes, we didn't get away with one, then I don't know what game they were watching. We weren't the better team. Even a draw, we'd have been like, Wolves deserve to win. Wolves deserve to win that match. They were the better team. They dominated us. You know, look at not only just in terms of the eye test, but also in terms of the stats. However you want to look at it, they were the better team last night, and we got away with one. We got away with one because we've got quality in our team that can just come up with something out of nothing. We were playing at home, so one of the callers last night on the full-time view said, you know, the Stretford end kind of sucked the ball in the back of the net, and I think that's partially true as well. But we were outnumbered, we were slow, we were lethargic, we were leggy. You know, again, if you said to someone, I used the analogy last night, if an alien came down to Earth and the little spaceship opens and the guy walked out, or alien person walked out and said, hey, I want to learn about football, what's going on here? And I went, wow, Mr. Alien, or Alien, E.T., phone home. One of these teams came third last year and won a trophy. The other one, their manager, their coach, he's only been here like a week. Which one do you think it is? He'd have gone, well, I think the one in the orange. I think the one in the orange won the trophy and came third last year. They look like the better team. I go, you're wrong. You're wrong. It's the other way round. Because we looked like a team of strangers last night. There was no cohesion. There was just nothing. It wasn't that much to write home about from United. And again, I think you have to find that fine line when it comes to it too, because people are getting really, really carried away. We are awful. We are not going to do anything this season. Erik ten Hag's going to be out of a job by Christmas. And look, that might happen. But at the same time, we've all seen in recent history, we have seen very good and very bad first games of the season for Man United. And when it came to the end of the season, it really meant nothing. You can have a situation like when we played Leeds a few years ago, 5-1, 4 Pogba assists. Oh, this is the one. This is the one. By the end of the season, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wasn't there. Ralf Rangnick was an interim manager. The club was on fire in terms of negatively. And Erik ten Hag sitting in the stands waiting to take over. Last season, we lost our first game. It got worse because then we lost our second game and we ended up finishing third. We won a trophy. We got to the FA Cup final. So a season, it's not decided or determined in the opening game or anything like that. The positive you can take away from it is we didn't play well. We didn't. We didn't deserve to win that game, but we still did. And the hope would be that Ten Hag will see that, will improve, things will be fixed, and hopefully more players will be brought in because more players will exit. That's, I think, the best takeaway you can get from it. Anthony says, Bruno, false 9, and world-class number 8, or Mount out. If there's anyone I would want as a false 9, it would probably be Sancho. I mean, obviously, the hope would be, Højlund's going to be back in. They reckon he's going to make his debut around Arsenal time, don't they? But there's things to figure out for Ten Hag, definitely, because that midfield combination last night, it just didn't work. And again, I did sympathise because they were just so overrun and so outnumbered. So I don't even know if it's a tactical thing of going, there needs to be an extra body in there, or there needs to be something. And that's going to be interesting to see how Ten Hag look towards that as well. Harold says, Man United was bad, but Wolves was actually good. Top teams across the entire season will have bad games, losses and draws. We had ours and it ended in a win. Relax. And that's kind of touching on the point that I just mentioned a minute ago, isn't it, Harold? That I do think that some of the reaction has been overblown. Shock. I think some of the criticism is completely fair. I mean, I don't think And again, this is where there's this fine line at the moment, I think, with social media or sort of football fandom. And ultimately, no one's right or wrong. It's people's opinions. But I do think there's this thing of you come out of last night, and I don't think you can be totally... Oh, it didn't matter. It was kind of a bit like in pre-season when we didn't have a good game, and you're allowed to say we weren't very good there, and people then will jump down your throat and say, no, it doesn't matter. It's a win, or it doesn't. Pre-season, it doesn't matter. A bit like last night. You go, I tell you what, we weren't that great. No, we won the game. What are you talking about? You go, I'm just saying. Everyone's got eyes. We watched. It wasn't great last night. Again, like, it's cool. We won, and as I just laid out, like in the grand scheme of things for the entire season, doesn't really matter. But I think you're naive if you look at that and be like, yeah, it's fine. Because that performance was not fine last night. Again, the positives is that we got the win, but there were red flags, certainly. But again, the positive is we got the win, and hopefully, because we know what Erik ten Hag's like, he's a perfectionist, he looks at that and says, right, I need to fix those things. Daniel Morrison says, morning, Owen, Super Dragon. I need to get it on the soundboard, don't I? I don't have it on the soundboard at the moment. Again, people still won't understand the reference to that one. That was a full-time view staple last night. That was a full-time view staple. It's a very, very, very obscure wrestling reference, and again, it's not for everyone. Certainly, it's not for everyone at all. People won't get it. If you're still confused by that, Google it, YouTube it, and it's well worth a watch, because it's the ultimate troll in person. I think really before trolling really got popular on like social media. Social media didn't even exist when it happened. I mean, when did that Super Dragon thing happen? That's like mid-2000s, something like that. It was incredible. So yes, when it comes to the Maguire news, the Maguire Latest is that this deal possibly is stalling, and it looks to be the crux of the reason for why it's stalling. It's kind of twofold. Again, one, because Maguire seemingly is looking for a payoff from his contract that he's current on, which again would kind of lead into what was being reported there previously. Not as kind of cut and dry as that, but previously it had been reported that Maguire had agreed personal terms with West Ham, etc. But he was looking to get some things financially in order before he completed the move. And the things he was looking to financially get in order, it would appear, is, okay, what's my payoff going to be? What's my compensation going to be? I'm leaving this big contract. I'm taking a pay cut in half. How are you going to make this right? How are you going to make this whole in this situation? And ultimately, sins of the past. Sins of the past. That's... once again, the entire Maguire situation is just yet another legacy of Ed Woodward. I mean, there's been so much talk this week about Moises Caicedo, £115 million, and the saga between Chelsea and Liverpool. And there's no doubt that Moises Caicedo is a fantastic player. 21, I don't know if he's worth £115 million. That's the market at the moment. It's nuts. But from a United perspective, all of the talk has been we could have signed him for £5 million, or was it £4.5 million only a few years ago. And we didn't. And why didn't we? Well, the story goes at the time is that Ed Woodward was unhappy with agent fees. Agent fees. A guy that paid £80 million for Harry Maguire was haggling over agent fees. And a bit like, as I mentioned, this whole Harry Maguire situation, it's all a legacy. It's all the negative legacy of Ed Woodward, of just sheer, I don't even know, at 9:20 a.m., the best way to put it, but batshit financial signings of the contracts that were out of control, the transfer fees that were stupid. I mean, again, I know that, United tax, and I know all that kind of stuff, but when you look at Ed Woodward's tenure, of the players he brought in and for the amount of money he brought those players in. Like, for instance, you look at Liverpool's recruitment over the last decade, and I look at, like, the hit ratio. Out of all of those ones, which one was a hit? And you look at, like, Liverpool or, say, City, the majority of them, if this was, like, I don't know, baseball, and I don't know baseball that well, but you say, I tell you what, their hit ratio is pretty good there, right? Actually, a better analogy is like a music artist, right? You look at all of their albums, all of their singles they put out, and you go, I'll tell you what, the majority of them were hits. The majority of them were top 10s. That's pretty good going. And it's no coincidence that the majority of them are good going. The majority of them were top 10 hits. And then when you've got another example of this artist that used to be really big in like the 80s, and they keep putting out albums or they keep putting out singles and they can't even chart, you go, well, that's not a coincidence either. When you're that consistent, consistency, you know, that's the key thing, isn't it? It's consistency. When you're that consistently a success, that's no coincidence. When you're that consistently a failure in terms of your signings as well, that's also not a coincidence. You are doing something wrong. And we are still dealing with that legacy because of people like, again, Harry Maguire. Now, okay, what's going to happen with this deal? Well, he wants a payoff. He's on a big contract. It's the Ed Woodward effect. It's the Ed Woodward effect. The loss, obviously, we signed it for 80 million. As I said, we've always got to hold that out. Every single time we have to hold that out. And when they talk about defenders and big signings, when that list gets brought up, they did it this summer with Kovar when he went to City, and they go, the most expensive defenders of all time. And the fact that Harry Maguire is the top of that list, we will always have to live with that. Every single time. And again, the way that guy operated, I saw that apparently he's releasing a book. I think it's coming out in October about his opinions on the Glazers and what happened at Manchester United. I don't even know if I could bring myself to read it. Because if that's going to be all of this like deflection that he wasn't involved in some of the nonsense that went on at Man United over the last decade, I don't even know. Just absolutely ridiculous. Anyway, let's move on. Let's talk about possible midfield additions. Now, it's not Sofian Amrabat at the moment. Actually, it's somebody else. This one's quite interesting. This comes from Jacob Steinberg from The Guardian, saying that Manchester United have approached Everton about a deal for Amadou Onana. Now, Erik ten Hag is keen to address his team's lack of physicality, which, again, this report actually came out prior to the game last night, and I think, if anything, it just proved to be even more accurate. Erik ten Hag is keen to address his team's lack of physicality and has turned his focus to bringing in a commanding central midfielder. Erik ten Hag wants to add more depth in midfield and feels that Manchester United need more height, but he does not want to compromise on quality. United believe Onana is more than a destroyer and is good enough on the ball. Everton, though, would hope to hold on to Amadou Onana for at least one more year. It would take a bid of at least £50 million, some are saying even 60, to convince them to sell. There is an awareness it could be difficult to keep him if Manchester United's interest develops. Now, when I saw this yesterday, you can get excited, but I think part of the positive of going for someone like Sofian Amrabat is that he was so affordable. We know, I mean, there's so much talk about FFP. What does it really mean? Does it actually exist? All that kind of stuff. But we know that he's available for, is it 25 million euros, 30 million euros? So in terms of pounds, what's that, 25 million quid? It means it's a snap. It's a steal. And then the moment you go after a player that's in the Premier League and a player that has several years under contract, I think Onana went to Everton, what was it, last year? The moment you go after a player in the Premier League, they're always going to ask for high money. So they're saying of at least 50 million, it probably would be more. And I just don't see, for United, where would that money be coming from, realistically? Yeah, we're going to sell, hopefully, Maguire, but that's going to go straight onto Pavard. And even that fee, if indeed that one goes through, I mean, we don't know what that one's going to be. Yes, we just sold Fred, but that was for what, about 15? Something like that. You can maybe say, well, Donny might go out or something like that. It feels like, to be honest, with the way sort of the outgoings have kind of slowed down a little bit, that even getting Amrabat for like 25 million euros, they kind of have to start scraping stuff together to get that one done. So I see this yesterday, and I think it's partially driven by the fact that we've heard really next to nothing about Amrabat in the last week, 10 days really. I think there was, and I hold myself in this too, always this assumption of like, yeah, the Amrabat one's going to happen. I think Romano's been talking about it a lot on Twitter over the summer. Alfredo Padula's been talking about it a lot over the summer, that, you know, the player really wants to move and the player's waiting for United, and maybe he'd been told kind of informally, you know, wait, we've got to get our house in order first. We've got to sell these players. But even selling the players on now feels like it's kind of slowed a little bit, or slowed down. You know, first it's selling Donny, then it's, well, he might be going out on loan. Now, it doesn't look like he's going to be going to Sociedad. There's been rumours he could go back to Ajax. Again, maybe the Ajax one, I could see the Donny to Ajax one happening. It kind of depends, I think, on Kudus, because it looks like he could be going to... He had Ajax had a deal agreed with Brighton for him. He was seemingly holding out. Now it looks like West Ham might be going in for him, but that kind of depends on the Paquetá deal, because he could be going to Man City. So this is this big like domino effect, because you could get Paquetá to City. That then allows West Ham to bring in Kudus, which then gives Ajax the money to get Donny, which could then give us the money to get Amrabat. But that's like, what, 3 deals that we're waiting for to happen first before we can end up getting Amrabat. And again, that's going to take time. And we're in a situation where we are not the only sort of top 6, top 7 team in the Premier League that's looking for that kind of defensive midfielder, looking for that 6, or looking for more reinforcements in midfield. We know Liverpool are looking for one. I know they've had a deal agreed with Southampton, I think, with Lavia, but so have Chelsea. And I think that, given how everything's kind of unfolding, there might be a bit more momentum to go to Chelsea over Liverpool if you're Lavia, because you'll look at their midfield and go, oh, they've got Enzo Fernandez, they've got Caicedo, they're doing big things. Not to say that Liverpool aren't, and Liverpool don't have a more recent track record of winning trophies, but it's funny how things work out in football when it comes to momentum. It's funny how things can shift in terms of, you watch a couple of games or a couple of people move to certain places first, and you just want to jump on the bandwagon. Really, you want to jump on the bandwagon, and I could see Lavia doing that. And if Liverpool think Liverpool are a bit like us, they really need that kind of destroyer 6 in midfield who's got a bit more legs. You saw the midfield they played against Chelsea; it was like 3-10s or whatever it was in midfield. It can't work. They played McAllister as a 6. I mean, that's so short term. So if United don't pull the finger out, or if they don't step up or get the Amrabat deal over the line fairly quickly, I think fans are right to have a bit of concern about that and be weary that one could fall through. So again, I see this Onana, Onana stuff over the last 24 hours, but I just don't think that one's likely. I just think it's too much. I think 50-60 million. I don't think United have that. I think they're looking at Amrabat for sort of 25-30, and that's the most they can get. But I think people are right to be concerned, because it has gone really, really quiet, no doubt about it. Where are we at when it comes to the super chats here? Where did I get up to? Here we go. Harold says, United need to call Harry's bluff and allow him to stay and fight for his position. Paying him half of his transfer fee is not viable. I still, like I said, I still think he will go Maguire, certainly, but I do think that one will take time. Love says, thoughts on the Manchester? Big up, Owen. The Manchester last night, and this is why I recommend everyone to go watch the full-time view. And if you are a member, you can call into the full-time view. It's one of the perks of being part of the UV Members Club, is that you can call in on a match day, have your say, get your emotions off your chest, whatever you want to talk about, particularly the game. So obviously last night we had the Manchester called in. He did he said a speech. It was more of a soliloquy. I don't know if I can do it justice. It was, you just got to watch it. I think you've got to watch it. It was. I mean, the time was then. I don't know. It was.
Fucking reckless! That's fucking reckless!
But that's part of the fun. SK with a super chat says, 100% it was a great strategy. 100%. It was a great strategy for Wolves. We don't have traditional wingers either to take advantage of Wolves letting go down the wing. Anthony Tracy says, we could have signed Caicedo and Bellingham. Imagine. Wow. The Bellingham one, again, we did everything initially to get him, and he decided to go to Borussia Dortmund, didn't he? We showed him around Old Trafford, met Sir Alex, and that one didn't happen. The Caicedo one we definitely could have done. Absolutely. And again, agent fees. Agent fees was the difference. I worry that we're becoming like... you remember, there was a period of time in sort of the late... was it sort of 2010s, when it almost became a meme, how of all of these great players throughout history, there was a story that Arsene Wenger was this close to signing them. Every single time, whether it was like Ronaldo, whether it was, I think, Ibrahimovic... I don't even know if Messi was involved in that. But honestly, you can probably get any player that's been half decent over the last like 2 decades. At one point, there's like Arsene Wenger going, I nearly signed him. I was very close. Kante, I was very close to signing him. You know, and it feels like at the moment there's a story, doesn't there? With any big player, they go, oh, yeah, United will link to him. Or people do the Ralf Rangnick thing, which I kind of like back off a little bit because people go, Ralf Rangnick recommended him. Ralf Rangnick recommended a lot of people. I get the impression that Ralf Rangnick, like Football Manager style, downloaded a shortlist. How many people are on here? 1,000. Well, I recommended him at one point. Like, it feels like anytime anyone goes anywhere, they go, Ralf Rangnick recommended this player. You know, he did. So there you go. Where else are we? Skengface says, how do Poch and Gary O'Neill have their teams playing better football than us? And they've been in the jobs barely a second. Well, Gary O'Neill certainly, again, I thought he absolutely... to be honest, he did Erik ten Hag last night. Absolutely did him up like a kipper. He did. I mean, he saw what United were going to do. Like I said, he wasn't even shy about it in his interview after the game. He says, you really overran United in midfield. How did you do it? He went, I just thought we'd get more numbers in there. And they did. And they were... Cunha was walking through. I mean, the way in which they beat our press was unbelievable. And had they just had a fraction better finishing, they'd have won that game, not only like 1-0, it could have been embarrassing. Had we been playing another team last night, realistically, it could have been really, really embarrassing. We got away with one, no doubt about it. Amanor says, Owen, I fear Liverpool may poach Amrabat like Gakpo. And Daniel Morrison says, we need to start stealing these players Brighton are looking to bring in. Always quality and don't cost too much. Our scouting/transfer network is utter trash. Bring back Ralf as director of football. I don't think Ralf's going anywhere near United ever again. I think he's probably very happy where he is. Was he manager of Austria? He signed his, confidentiality agreement. And if he ever does a book one day, it'll be fascinating to see what indeed he would be allowed to say, really, but just what he would say. I think the Ralf Rangnick book's a very interesting one if he ever comes out and says it, because his time at United is wild, really. I mean, the fact that he was the manager and he only managed to implement, I think, really what he wanted United to do for, what was it, like 20 minutes against Crystal Palace, and then after that the players just went no. And some of the stories, I mean, cast your mind back, some of the stories that were going on at that period of time, it's just crazy. And I think that it'll be interesting to see if any Premier League teams do this season, big teams in particular, like Chelsea did last season, when they go down the interim manager route, because we've seen now a couple of times, like with Chelsea, like with Tottenham last year, like with us, with Ralf, that whole interim, let's just get through the season and we bring someone in, like that interim part can be absolutely shocking. I mean, absolutely terrible. So it'll be interesting to see if a big club does that, because make no mistake, the manager's going to lose a job. I mean, it was like a year ago yesterday or the day before, it was Thomas Tuchel, Antonio Conte handshake, and they were like a year ago today. And I was watching that going, man, what a difference. Both of them aren't there anymore. Steve says, let's remember we got thumped our first 2 games last season and still pulled it together and had a good season. We will come good. I do believe, like Steve is saying that, I do think we'll get better, absolutely. But it certainly wasn't the swashbuckling start we were looking for, was it at all? We've got over, or nearly 1,300 people watching. Only 162 likes, by the way, guys. So if you haven't already, click that like button. See if we can get to 500. Obviously, it's a solo stream, so I appreciate everyone tuning in. And less than 150 subscribers to go until 150,000. Yes, so if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Now, just reflecting a little bit more on the game last night, and I'm interested to know what you guys think about this. Obviously, one of the biggest points of contention, of course, was the penalty incident late on. If you didn't see it, or you don't know what I'm talking about, or what have you, is right in the sort of dying moments of the match. I think it was in the 96th minute, maybe 97th minute, something like very, very, very late on. There's a ball in the box. Andre Onana comes out to claim it, gets nowhere near the ball, and clatters into the Wolves player. Absolutely smacks into the Wolves player. Now, VAR did check it. It's not as if nobody saw it and they just moved on. VAR did check it. It was a really strange one because they checked it, they checked it, they checked it. The referee starts running over to the sideline and everyone went, here we go. We've bottled it. We've blown it. And he actually ran over to the sideline to book Gary O'Neill for going crazy at the fourth official. Now, Gary O'Neill, of course, was, as I mentioned, furious during the game. He was also furious after the game, and he revealed in his press conference at Old Trafford that he has said that the PGMOL's John Moss spoke to him after the game and has admitted Wolves should have had a penalty and it was a clear and obvious error. Now, what I will say with this is I really sympathise. I really sympathise with Gary O'Neill and Wolves there, because this was kind of my issue last season, is the PGMOL and John Moss going up to Gary O'Neill after the game. Yeah, we got it wrong. Sorry. Well, that doesn't do anything for me. If I'm Gary O'Neill, I'm going, well, that does nothing for me. We've lost. We lost the game, and you're going up to, sorry, we got it wrong. And this is my problem with VAR is, not only, I can understand human error. I can understand human error on the pitch. Referee real time misses it. That's what VAR is for. And then you've got multiple people there going, nah, it's not a penalty. And then that, like, PGMOL is coming out afterwards going, it was a penalty. Already, game week 1, there have already been some terrible decisions. I'm not even talking about this one now. The penalty that Luton got against Brighton was scandalous. Absolutely scandalous. The fact that, again, that wasn't overturned. And then I didn't think the one against, in the Chelsea-Liverpool game, I didn't think that was a penalty because his hands were like here. But if in comparison to the penalty for Luton against Brighton, I think the Liverpool fans would have the right to say, well, what isn't a penalty then? It's just, again, I think it's crazy. As far as my view on the penalty, or the penalty decision rather, because it wasn't given, my thoughts were, when it happened in real time, before even they saw the replay, when he's come out and he's clattered him. Now, I think the thing that I was sort of on the fence a little bit about was that you see that a lot. You see that a lot in football matches. You see that a lot when the ball will come in, goalkeeper comes to get the ball, eyes only on the ball, comes out to make himself big, bang, goes through a group of players. So my initial reaction was I didn't think it was going to be given because you don't often see them be given. When you watch it back, I can absolutely see why they would want a penalty. And the best way to look at it, to try and remove any of your bias, because the majority of the people here will be Manchester United fans, and it's difficult to remove your bias. If that was the other way around, if it was 0-0, and in the last few minutes of the game, Luke Shaw puts the ball into the box, and Sarr, their goalkeeper, comes out and clatters through, let's say it's Marcus Rashford, nowhere near the ball, takes him out. Do we want a penalty? The answer would be yes. I would want a penalty for that one. So my impression was we got away with it. And again, I sympathise for Gary O'Neill after the game that they come up to him and say, with the PGM logo, we got it wrong. And they did that to a lot of people last season. Sorry, we got it wrong. How about you get better? How about the reason the technology is there is that you can see, again, clear and obvious errors. Again, I'm not complaining too much because I'm not complaining too much because we won and we got away with one. But it kind of summed up United's night, really. You know, we got away with the performance and we got away with a decision that absolutely on another day could have gone the other way, really. But it was. Again, if it was the other way around, I would want the penalty. And I think the frustrating thing will be for Gary O'Neill and Wolves is that we might see something very similar and it will be given as a penalty. The issue is with referees and VAR. This was my issue last season as well with a couple of the Casemiro red card, you know, when he grabs the collar. As I said, I don't have an issue with Casemiro getting sent off for that. What I have an issue with is I guarantee there will be instances like that this weekend or the weekend after that will be exactly the same or worse, and they won't be given as red cards. And I was right on that one. And it'll be the same with this penalty decision too. Is there will be penalties given for incidents that are probably less than that. There is no consistency. The refereeing in the Premier League is awful. It has been awful for years now. For me, it's only getting worse. I don't subscribe to the notion of get rid of VAR. I think VAR should be kept because my worry is if we got rid of VAR, it would get worse. The reason it would get worse is because some of these referees are shit and they make terrible decisions on the pitch. The real scandalous part of it for me, again, is the fact that they look at these decisions and they still get it wrong. That's the real worrying thing. Because what is this then? Is this just to protect your own club? Because that's what it kind of feels like sometimes too, isn't it? It's just completely protect your own. They don't want to make the referees look like they're bad. It's just, again, and maybe this is rose-tinted glasses from me, but I just don't remember the refereeing being this bad. And it gets worse every season. Every single season, it gets worse. And as much as we can say we got away with one last night, and I think we did, there will be absolutely moments this season, because it happened last season as well, where we should get penalties, where our players get sent off or anything like that, and the referees will make the wrong call. I have no faith in Premier League referees. And I know that Howard Webb comes out and does these interviews. We're trying to do this, we're trying to do that. What are you trying to do? Because I don't see it. I don't see what they're trying to implement. If their big radical transformation of what they're trying to do is come out and say, yeah, we got things wrong, sorry, I'd be looking at the number of apologies that they've done, like the number of apologies they did last season. Yeah, we got all of these ones wrong. And not everyone's going to have a perfect record, but when you've got technology, you should be pretty close. I mean, guys, you know the rules, but you're meant to know the rules better than everyone else, and they still get it wrong. Ugh. It's crazy. It really is, referees. I could talk about referees for 10 hours and how rubbish they are when it comes to the Premier League. Shocking. Andil says, I don't sympathise, nothing. First half, one was also a pen. It struck the arm and then he pulled it towards his body. It all balances out, in my opinion. People say this with the whole balancing out things. It balances itself out. And maybe it does, but I feel like that's just making excuses for poor officiating. But like the idea of while it balances it out is basically saying, well, they're all shit, so it doesn't matter. That's not a room for improvement. You know, imagine that. Imagine that at work every day. You're constantly making mistakes. Wow, I do some good stuff though, so it's all right. No, stop making the mistakes. Stop. Do your job. And Roy Keane would say, do your job. That's what you're there for, is to do your job. Daniel says, I remember Dominic Calvert-Lewin clattering into De Gea and the goal stood. Referees in the Prem are scandalous and need to be replaced. P.S. Super Dragon. No, I think you're right. Again, that's my biggest issue with referees in the Premier League is just zero consistency. Zero consistency. And for instance now, the precedent's been set this weekend. I keep going back to that handball that was given against Brighton for Luton. Because surely the precedent's been set. You're saying that's a handball, and we know it's not. And this is the frustrating thing too, is they focus on stupid stuff. So now they're focusing so much on booking managers, being in the box, being in their technical area, or only having one person in the technical area, not two. How about you focus about getting decisions right on the pitch first? How about you do that instead of focusing on whether they've got an assistant manager standing at the back of a box? Or, you know, remember one year when the handball rule changed and they were giving it for just any time it touched the hand, like it was foot in hockey, and then they change it? They get focused on these sort of these big changes that get headlines. I'm going to book this manager. I'm going to book this coach. How about you get it right? Get the decision right first. It's crazy. It really, really is. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. A bit of an update actually this morning on Matty Kovar outgoings at Manchester United, because the former Manchester United goalkeeper has now left. He has gone to Bayer Leverkusen. Leverkusen have posted a video this morning showing Kovar about to sign his new contract. I don't know full the details on it. I do believe there was like a buyback clause or at least a sell-on clause. Again, for me, when it came to Kovar, we saw him play a couple of times in pre-season, and I think that for all the talk about we were looking for a number 2 this year, obviously we got Oneill, but for all the talk we were looking for, was it Suzuki from Japan, or we're looking for whoever it may be, I felt like we had one right there. We literally had a goalkeeper right there, a valid number 2. Last season, he had an excellent season in the Czech Republic, and he won a trophy. We saw him in pre-season; he was decent with his feet, and for me, it was obvious: keep him, keep him. Last night, Dean Henderson was on the bench. Now it's talking about, well, because Tom Heaton's injured, maybe now Henderson's got to stay. Henderson was a viable person to sell and bring money in. We're talking about how we're going to find the money to bring in Amrabat or whoever. I genuinely don't get this one. I don't understand this one at all. I say maybe look, the Forest situation, although they've got FFP problems and financial issues, and the complexity of the Henderson deal was a bit of an issue, and I don't know how many other clubs would be interested in Henderson, but for me the option was there. Onana is the 1, Kovar is the 2, or Heaton is the 2, Kovar is the 3, whatever. Heaton's injured at the moment. Get Henderson out, get some money, and reinvest it back in the team. I don't know, it might not be as straightforward as that, but I didn't get the sort of push to move Kovar out. And let's make no mistake, Bayer Leverkusen are good. They're a good team. Like they're a good side. Xabi Alonso's doing really well at Leverkusen. Where did they get in? Was it Europa League last season? They get semi-final, something like that. Like they'll be good this year. So I mean, again, I don't get this one. I really, really don't. I felt like he should have stayed. Henderson should have gone. And I don't know, people could say, well, maybe that wouldn't be the best for his development. But he's a Man United player, To me, didn't make a lot of sense. Callum says Kovar may have just wanted first team football. He's 24, I believe. I think, look, that might have been part of it. He might have been, saying to Ten Hag, look, I don't want to stay if I'm going to be sitting on the bench. But Dean Henderson also said that. So that's what Dean Henderson said, and he's sitting on the bench at the moment. He did an interview in TalkSport. Tough shit, basically. What's best for United at the same time too, if you've got a contract. So again, I wouldn't even be shocked if in 5-6 years time we come back for Kovar. Lil Yo-Yo says conspiracy theory. Here we go. Dean Henderson to Tottenham. Well, I don't think so. They've got a new goalkeeper, haven't they? And Red Baron says, English players are artificially increased in value due to the quota, therefore keeping Henderson would be nice. Again, it looks like now Henderson isn't going to be going. Looks like, isn't it? Looks like he's going to be staying. And finally, obviously, we did have our first Premier League game last night, a 1-0 victory over Wolves at Old Trafford. Let me know some of your thoughts in the chat. We'll get some of your comments up on the screen, obviously not just super chats as well. Here we go. Chelsea all the way says, Owen, you are delusional. Chelsea fan on a United channel at 9:48. Chelsea all the way is here quite a lot. I don't know what maybe I'm delusional about. You can tell me. I praised Chelsea quite a lot this weekend, and I admitted I was wrong when it came to Chelsea too. I said that I didn't think Chelsea were going to do all that much this season. They might not, but I thought they looked all right. But if you're gonna say I'm delusional, at least tell me why. It says Wolves were robbed. I said United got lucky. Come on, go do better. Oh God, this is what's crazy with social media nowadays, or just in general. I've had shows, or I do like posts, and I then doubt what I've said sometimes, because I'll say like, I'll tell you what, United got away with one. Wolves deserved to win that game. Wolves were the better side, blah blah blah, and then someone will go like that. Owen, you're delusional. Wolves got robbed. Did I not just say that? Then you start going, there might be something wrong with what I'm saying, because the words I think I'm saying clearly are not coming out, if that's your interpretation. Or maybe your ears full of wax, Chelsea man. You can't hear, or you can't, I don't know. It's very strange. What else are people saying here in the chat at the moment as well? Toby says smash a like. Absolutely, indeed. All Elite says, Owen, are you concerned by the distinct lack of quality in our entire front line? That's my worry. This is a concern of mine, and it's something I've been saying quite a lot recently, is that I feel like people are looking at Rasmus Højlund like he's going to be this big saving grace, and once he plays, we're going to be scoring goals for fun. And look, we might. He's a striker. That's primarily what he's in there to do. And here's hoping we're like, oh my God, this guy was unbelievable. Here's hoping that's what we see. But Rasmus Højlund, I don't think, can make Antony more clinical in front of goal. Or Rasmus Højlund can't, for instance, like Rashford last night, in the first half in particular, obviously Rashford would be on the left, which was much more effective, but Rashford wasn't really all that involved. And you did see at points last night, you saw the Marcus Rashford kind of, I don't want to say sulking, but that kind of, maybe not tracking back all the time, looking a bit lethargic, looking a bit not totally interested. Sometimes when Rashford, if he's not having the best game, he can kind of just be a bit like, that kind of body language. That's what it kind of felt like last night, Rashford. And Rasmus Højlund can't do anything for that. What's Rasmus Højlund going to do with Marcus Rashford there? I thought Sancho came on and did well. Rasmus Højlund can't make Alejandro Garnacho play more effectively from the start. I think Garnacho, he has this. We've seen this a few times with him, where he'll start a game or he'll come on and he's so good, and we go, right, Garnacho's ready to start. And then he starts and you go, ugh, I don't think Garnacho's ready to start just yet. And he's got that, but look, he's still really, really young. But again, just across that front four last night, it was very flat. It was really, really flat for United. Again, I thought Sancho came on and he probably looked the most lively out of the bunch. Rashford, occasionally when he kind of like peeled off onto the left-hand side, he looked more effective. And that's why I've been saying, as a number 9, he can work to do a job, or he'll have like a 10-15 minute period where he might score, getting a bit like against Lens. And some of the people were saying to me, see, Owen, he can play as a number 9. I said, I'm not saying he can't play as a number 9 as a job. I'm saying he can't play as a number 9 for an entire season, or at least the majority of it. This notion of, well, Marcus Rashford's there to support Rasmus Højlund as the central striker, for me, that's not enough. Because he's not a striker. Even he said it himself. He doesn't have the tactical awareness or the sort of natural centre-forward play to play in that position, Marcus Rashford. He's not best with his back to goal. His forward runs aren't consistent for a number 9. He's much more effective off the left. He can do a job there, but that's not his role. It's not. And again, you see in the first half, he was completely a ghost for the majority of the game, and he got more and more frustrated and kind of just then, started shrugging. For me, like, going forward against Spurs away, I'd be looking at, right, we saw it in pre-season, get Sancho through the middle as the false 9, because again, he looked lively. He was willing to play with his back to goal. He was willing to play on the half turn. He was willing to link up and drop in, particularly with how outnumbered we were in midfield. He's willing to drop in and be an extra body. Get Rashford out on the left, where he's much more effective, much more dynamic, is willing to try and take players on. And then suddenly you've got a bit more impetus in that team. And Ten Hag's talking about, I want to be a team that's great in transition. That team there looks better in transition, I think. So again, I think that's part of it too. Antony, I would say I've been critical of Antony. I think everyone's expecting more from him this season. And again, it's one game, so it's better to judge across 38 for the entirety of this season. But my frustration with Antony is we know he can do it. For a 10-15 minute period in pre-season against Lens, he was brilliant. The pass he did for Rashford when he just fed the ball through, it's a proper world-class pass to find a striker. Or his finish, it was a heavy touch, but he still finished. I've seen him go past players too. So the notion that I can't take players on or can't beat the man for pace, yeah, he can. We've seen him do that. But he doesn't. He does. I said he's a 1 out of 10 player. Not in terms of his rating is 1 out of 10, but in terms of his consistency. For every sort of 10 opportunities to take a player on, go past or finish or do something productive, the other 9 times it's very predictable. It's cut back, pass, or make the wrong pass. Sometimes you don't know it doesn't look like he knows what he's going to do. And it's very predictable. For a fullback, you know what Antony's going to do. He's going to try and cut inside, or he's just going to cut back. I've seen sometimes on counter-attacks where there's a bit of space to go into. He's one-on-one with the fullback. You're going, right, go at him. He'll cut back, pass it to the fullback. Players get in, and then it gets quite slow again. And then suddenly it's a low block, and you're trying to break it down through the middle. So And again, that's not just to single out Anthony. I just think that's across the entire front four. It's not sort of dynamic enough, and maybe that will help when you've got Højlund in there as a bit more of a focal point, someone that's willing to make, again, forward runs, stretch centre backs, bring people in by playing with his back to goal. That will certainly help. But as I said, I don't think Højlund can't make them more clinical. That's got to be on them ultimately. Let's see if we got any more super chats here. We've got Red Baron says, no one making runs for Anthony. Rashford is not a striker. He looks like he can't be bothered in the striking position. Like I said, Rashford last night, certainly, there were definitely points where you could see he was just kind of strolling around. I didn't get sort of the best body language from him. And I think there was and you can't obviously write Rashford off at all. He had a great season last season, but we did say the way he ended last season wasn't the best. He himself said the way I ended last season wasn't the best. I had some injuries, but last night wasn't good, and it's difficult because you don't want to focus on one player too much. Because just as the collective, United weren't good. United weren't good last night. They weren't, and you can look at I think any individual on that pitch. Even if you could say Onana with the penalties incident, but Onana was, I think, our man of the match. But anyone you could point to and go, they weren't great last night. They weren't. And again, the absolute thing to take away from it is we got lucky. We got away with one. Had we had a game, for instance, like when we were like Chelsea at the weekend, had we had Liverpool at home, we would have lost that game, 1,000,000%. Had we been playing Aston Villa like Newcastle, I know Newcastle peppered them 5-1, but had we been playing Villa at home, we'd have probably lost that game. They got quality going forward. Wolves were fortunate we were playing a team that, even last season, their issues were goals. That's why they brought in Costa later on in the transfer window, was to try and find goals. So we were fortunate in that aspect. Again, the positive thing is that start of the season does not correlate towards the end of the season. We've had great starts and finished badly. Like last season, we had poor starts. We finished very well. The positive is that in comparison to last year, we got 3 more points than we had at this stage. The big one for me will be for me that when we play away against Spurs, if we can bring a performance there and we can get a result there, then I will say, right, that's a positive. That's an improvement on last season. Because the 2 biggest takeaways for me last season was we don't score enough goals and our away record is really, really poor. It's not good enough, particularly against the big teams. So if we go away to Spurs, get 3 points by being clinical, that's a step in the right direction. Everyone can have bad days, obviously, but it's, against the big teams, do you show up? Red Baron says, I disagree, Owen. We always try to turn up against bigger teams and play rubbish against smaller teams, but that doesn't excuse it. That doesn't excuse that either. And even last season, that's not really true. At home, yes. At home last season, we played well against the big teams. We beat near enough every big team at home. But away from home, we did not turn up against the bigger teams. We did not elevate our performance levels. Some of our away performances last season were shocking against big teams. And again, I think that's no excuse. And certainly Ten Hag, I think if you slip into that mentality, if you slip into that mindset of, but when we play a bigger team, we'll step it up. That does not win you. That's not win you titles. That's not consistent. And that again, that's complacency, really. And that's what got us to the point over the last decade where we've got to, well, Man United will roll them over. No, they won't in the Premier League. It doesn't work like that anymore. SK with the super chat says, you have a point. Often the attack looks like they train only passing. Feels the chemistry isn't there. We can do it. Remember Rashi Martial 2018, 2019. And again, no doubt I think we'll get better. There's no doubt about that. And Ramanan says, no player wanted to retain the ball until Eriksen and Sancho came on. We would have lost with David De Gea. We've seen this before. Players need to step up. I did think Eriksen played well when he came on too. The only problem with Eriksen, of course, he's got no legs. I mean, is just well, he does have legs, obviously, but I mean, he can't play. His legs go after 60 minutes. If you could, if we had a younger Christian Eriksen, if we had a Christian Eriksen that was 5 years younger, had a bit more, and didn't fade out so quickly into the game, what a difference. Because he's still, I was saying this before in the preseason. I think we kind of forget with Eriksen just how much quality he still has. Remember when he came in last year, and the first few games of the season, he was brilliant. I mean, he was absolutely brilliant against the likes of Liverpool and Arsenal at Old Trafford. He was the pass before the pass, and he still is quality. It's just a case of he's not going to last the 90 minutes. And he needs someone else to almost to do his running for him. But he's still our best passer on the ball. And you saw that when he came on last night. So I think to sort of write him off would be to our detriment. And I think he'll still have an important part to play this season, I do. But there you go, guys. Appreciate everyone tuning in. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. What's on tap for the rest of the day? Plenty of content on the horizon, so stay tuned as we build up to the game on Saturday against Spurs. Anyway, have a good one. And as I mentioned, guys, I'll speak to you again very, very soon. See ya. Peace.